No apology, really, for the sort of Route 1 nature of this. Who is right, Burnham or Boris? Let me just update you with the main headlines, of course, that we know so far. South Yorkshire now moved to Tier 3, Manchester into Tier 3, but, of course, the package of measures to address that still seems, from Burnham's side, up in the air. Johnson unequivocal at Prime Minister's question time. All of this comes, of course, the latest data on coronavirus, just over 21,000 new cases. So, there it is. The Mayor of Manchester said that the failure to agree a package of support will mean a winter of hardship for Greater Manchester if Tier 3 measures are imposed. Andy Burnham said tighter measures would be certain to increase levels of poverty, homelessness and hardship. He added ministers walked away from negotiations over aid earlier yesterday. Now, a different story emerges on the other side. After more than a week of wrangling, Mr Johnson last night unilaterally shifted Greater Manchester to the highest level of curb, saying Mr Burnham had rejected an offer of 60 million business support on top of 22 million for contact tracing and enforcement. Whitehall sources said an agreement of 55 million was initially reached. Man alive, are you keeping up with this? But during a final telephone call to rubber stamp the arrangement, Mr Burnham blindsided the PM with a demand for 65 million. The PM tried to compromise on 60 million, but a government source said Andy Burnham's pride got in the way of the deal. Another source claimed the mayor had told the PM it was important to him that he got more than Lancashire and Merseyside, the other two areas, of course, under Tier 3. Ministers have insisted the £60 million package is still on the table, but Mr Burnham will need to back down in order to accept the cash. Let's just update exactly where we are. We can always turn to Charlotte Ivers.
Well, Andy Burnham wanted £90 million from the government. After negotiations, he brought that request down to £65 million, but the government would not go above £60 million. There was then speculation that actually Greater Manchester would only get £22 million. That speculation was intensified when yesterday at the press conference, Boris Johnson didn't seem to be able to confirm a number for how much financial support Greater Manchester would get. But just now at PMQs, Boris Johnson did confirm on the record Greater Manchester will be getting that £60 million that the government offered.
There it is, £60 million. He's confirmed that at PMQs. That goes to the local councils within Greater Manchester to distribute in the correct manner. But who is right on this? And of course, what has naturally happened is the last thing you need to happen during something like a pandemic when there are jobs on the line. People are playing politics. Who is playing the greater game, though, of this? Who blinked first? Who is it that reneged on what deal? So Burnham said that he wanted a bit more money. Johnson said that he originally agreed to 65. The PM agreed to the demand, blindsided the Prime Minister with a demand from Burnham of 65. The PM tried to compromise on 60, but apparently Andy Burnham walked away because he wanted the 65. Now, I don't know which of those two things is true, but who, on balance, where are you seeing, who do you believe has got this one right? 0344 499 1000. It's very easy, isn't it? Because the bigger answer to this is there could never be enough money. If you put 200 million quid in the pot, it wouldn't be enough to pay everything at full capacity, to pay everybody's wages, to subsidise businesses, to compensate those that have lost out financially in whatever you would never have enough money. Which means it leaves Andy Burnham in a slightly, politically speaking, luxurious position of being able to say, do you know what? It's not enough money. I asked for more money to help the people of Manchester, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we hear the phrase the most vulnerable, because that's always one that's thrown in when you want to really up the politics of something. And we now have a kind of a standard. 60 million, by the way, is the final sum. In terms of who's got this right, who do you trust? Who do you believe? Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, or Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000. I heard Keir Starmer on Question Time there with Prime Minister's Question Time talking about how Boris Johnson is playing one council off against another. I don't know where, I mean, he's wrong, by the way. Keir Starmer is completely wrong. He's doing exactly what I think Andy Burnham probably did in this, and that's that it's a sort of an open goal, because you will never know what the real detail was of the conversation. You could never get enough money for this, let's face it. If you did, it would run into hundreds of millions. And so if you're in the position of being the the recipient, in this case Andy Burnham, we'll hear later what's happening in South Yorkshire, then all you've got to do is name a number and say they failed to give me what I needed. I mean, it's a very easy game to play, isn't it? I wanted 100 million. They didn't give me 100 million. Therefore, they don't care about Manchester. They don't care about people's jobs. They don't care about people's livelihoods. They don't care about local businesses. Enter Keir Starmer into the equation to sort of widen this out to a bigger crisis, and they're playing one off against the other, playing politics. Look, the one thing I absolutely can guarantee is there's only a certain amount of money around, surely. I mean, think about what we're doing here. So we've had what's going on in Liverpool. We've had what's going on in Lancashire. We've now moved to what's going on in Greater Manchester. We're about to hear more information on what's going on in South Yorkshire. Every one of these regions, areas or cities is asking for money. And just when you thought Rishi Sunak's big fat money tree couldn't get any busier after furlough and the loans and the grants and the various schemes that were in there to assist people in all manner of ways over the last 6 months, we're sort of back at it again. Where the heck is the money coming from? Where does it come? Somewhere along the line, somebody has to say, look, that's the amount we have, and we think we've worked it out properly, and you need to take this money. And of course, the other side of this will always argue it wasn't enough. Now, I don't blame any local mayor or any local representative for wanting to get as much for their local pot as they possibly can. That's kind of their job. But when they don't get it, is that an act of treachery? Is that an uncaring act? Is that an act of politics? Or is it just a financial reality? So you've heard the details on all of this, and they've spent, by the way, I mean, the idea, and I think Keir Starmer also accused Boris Johnson in this of kind of, making casual, almost on the hoof decisions. This went on for 10 days, for goodness sake. I thought at this rate it's going to go on as long as the Brexit negotiations. So this wasn't something that was just a needle in an arrow thrown at a dartboard. No, we'll just give them that. That's fine. It clearly wasn't done in that respect. You'd have the might of the civil service looking at this and picking over the numbers and trying to crunch them and work out what is, there will be a method in it, whether you agree with the amount or not. There will absolutely be some kind of method in that. And Andy Burnham comes along at the last knockings, so we're told, and says, actually, I want a bit more than that. And the Prime Minister says, well, there isn't any more than that. So he walks away and he's able to say, I pleaded for more. I was told there is no more. Therefore, he doesn't care about poor people. I mean, this is student-level politics, if we are to believe that side of it. I genuinely look at this and I think, I'm not sure who to believe. What I do know is the Prime Minister of the country kind of usurps any other bureaucratic power base. So you have to kind of accept that. 60 million quid is the amount that it is. And of course, it's not forever. This is a matter of weeks, and then we will return to the drawing board after that. But how much money could even be left in the pot? 0344 499 1000. When it comes to that wider issue of how far you go in terms of money given, I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with that figure? What do you give everybody 200 million? Where would you be? And bear in mind, this journey, this lockdown 2 journey, has only just begun. We're only now, South Yorkshire, into what, the fourth region in England, this is, to have this. Stand by for more areas. In the northeast, you can expect, it'll travel south. You just know that you're going to hear something about Birmingham in the coming weeks. They'll get south. Then you've got London as well, which is another issue down there. Sadiq Khan will be having the same arguments, the same politics will be made by the same people. And it should not be about party politics. It shouldn't be about that. And there was this extraordinary moment, and who knows who's correct on this, where Robert Jenrick, the Secretary of State, said that he had spoken to Andy Burnham at 2 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, Andy Burnham gives a press conference. Somebody shows Andy Burnham a telephone with the numbers on and says, Burnham says this is the first he knew about it. Jenrick claims he spoke to him 2 hours before that. He told Kay Burley on Sky News, yep, that's still going. He told them that, yeah, I did it. I made the phone call. And he wouldn't be drawn on. He didn't want to get involved in a row. I thought he was quite dignified, Jenrick. Again, I've got no idea. How do we know? Who's telling the truth? Did they make this thing up outside the town hall in Manchester where Burnham looked shocked at looking at a phone screen? Unbelievable. It's interesting, when you look at the people who are opining on this, Ian Dunt, the political commentator, absolutely lost his sugar on this. He completely, I can't even read out what he said. Cutting off funding, the funding offer for Manchester out of spite, is one of the most appalling, vindictive, counterproductive, short-sighted and asinine things this administration has done. And they've done a lot. It's beyond comprehension. It's actually beyond my effing comprehension, he says. They didn't give a damn about the people of this country. They couldn't give a singular F word, just pawns in a tawdry little game. Lots more F words, probably a few other words in there as well. And then it's met by the indignation of the Ian Dunt posse. Adam Pritchard, I don't know either. Exactly. The Conservative Party that I joined stood for wouldn't have behaved like this. Even the Conservative Party I left in 2009 wouldn't have done this. These people are spiteful, corrupt, inept, and this country deserves so much better. Inja says, Tory scum. It was only a matter of time before Tory scum reared its head. Val says, they don't care. They only wanted red wall seats to get Brexit over the line. They'll run a mile when the hits the fan and leave others to clear up the mess. Mandy Roberts, is there anyone out there who can actually defend the wicked Tories' actions? Mrs. Karen Hoyle says, maybe all their money has gone test and trace. I expect so. It's lining the pockets of their rich friends. Tory scum, rich friends. You see, it follows. Since the dollar and the GDP are no longer backed by gold, but merely fiat currency, the Bank of England can keep the UK afloat until the crisis is over. To keep yourself afloat, buy gold bullion now. Thank you for the advice. Mass exodus on the streets is on the card, says Dean Rotherham. This government couldn't manage a flea circus. And on it goes. And this is kind of what Keir Starmer wanted to happen. The point of me reading those responses just from one commentator. Now, I appreciate these are people that would probably support the politics of Ian Dunt, and that's fine, by the way, but that's how this one has now played out. Who is right, Boris Johnson or Andy Burnham? Boris or Burnham?